How's everybody doing?
Good, good. How are you doing?
Just trying to recover from having my eardrums blown out because I have my volume way too high. But other than that, good.
Sorry.
I cranked up the volume so I could go sit in the other room and hear if anyone else was joining a meet that I was leaving open.
Oh, yeah. I think Matthew joined as a. Oh no, yeah, okay, you're a panelist. Yay! It worked.
It worked.
You got my emails.
I got some email just now.
Cool. Well, let me make you a co-host, Matthew, so you can. We'll seamlessly transition over to you when it's time. Oh, and I guess I should make other people co-hosts since Bobby has slides. Chris probably has slides. Make everybody co-hosts.
Hey everybody, I'm back here. Let's step away for a second.
Cool. Welcome back.
Thank you. How's it going, Matt?
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Good.
I got to reconnect so it'll let me use my camera. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'll be right back. Oh, yes. Okay, boomer. Chris, I'm really disappointed that I'm technically speaking at Atlanta PHP, but I don't get a mug right now.
I don't know if we're gonna. So I was thinking I would send mugs to everybody, but at the moment they are in our office space, which we are essentially sequestered from.
Yeah.
But actually, in more later in the month, we're actually I'm gonna get all our stuff because we're converting to full remote.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Oh.
So yeah, so I'll get all our stuff. I'll have, it's funny. We're actually moving house to a little further southwest of where we're at. You know, the house you've seen.
Mhm.
Like end of the month, and so I'm gonna clear out all our stuff, all the user group stuff from work, and just drop it all into the new house.
Yeah.
So
Build some shelves or something. Get some Home Depot shelving or something. Yeah.
yeah, I got a lot of stuff in the shelving in the garage. I'm gonna move detachable stuff that I'm gonna move with me. So I'm excited to set up everything all over again because I'll have a lot more space in the new place too. So I'm excited. Moving sucks, but this is gonna be the
Yes, it does.
20-year house we're expecting. You know.
Good.
This one. Yeah.
Well, I think we'll wait a couple more minutes, maybe like start 5 after or so. Sound like a plan?
Yeah, that's cool. I'm good with whatever. It's y'all's meeting. I don't care what happens. I'm just here for the ride.
The entertainment.
What's up, guys?
I didn't check Austin and Boston's meetup pages in the last couple of days, but I think we had last I saw we had 11 RSVP.
Yeah,
So
10 here.
probably okay. So probably half of those will actually come. So
Probably.
Yeah, we've got 11 on us.
Well, we've got 9 on the Zoom call and then 4 on YouTube. So
okay, cool. Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Nothing to see.
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I'm getting a few more people popping in.
Yep.
Couple Atlanta folks I recognize the names here, so that's cool.
they're waiting till the last minute. Literally.
Chris, where did that beard come from, man?
Where did the beer?
The beard.
The beard. I bought a kit and I didn't know. It was one of those. Well, it was funny. Before we started working from home, there's a couple guys in the office who have like serious, like huge beard down to the belly kind of thing, and I was like, yeah, I've always kind of kept it short. You know, I'm thinking I should try to just let it grow out a little bit, get some volume, see how it goes. You know, and then we start working from home, so I'm like, perfect opportunity to like let it go. And we were kind of like, and another guy in the office who was kind of like, we were both in the same mindset. Yeah, we'll just let it go. Then we'll go back to the office and be like, "Whoa, I've got our crazy beards." And then we'll shave them off again, you know. And then,
there could be some real crazy beards by then.
Yeah, but now since we're going to be moving basically full remote, he's already like trimmed his back to normal, and I'm getting ready to do the same thing because it's kind of the point was the surprise people in the office, you know, kind of thing. We're all back there, but we're not going back really. So.
Oh, so they called it like forever?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. There's the what was I gonna say? Crap. There's a co-working chain called Rome. I don't know if they're global or national or just around Atlanta, but they've got 4 or 5 sites around Atlanta, and there's one down the street from the current office space. So they said eventually, when things kind of calm down a little bit more, they're going to have some space there as kind of the HQ if we really need to have any meetings or bring people in for something or whatever. Mm-hmm. So we'll use that as needed down the road. But right now, it's just 100% stay at home, don't get sick.
Wow.
Way less overhead. You don't
Yeah.
have to pay for office space.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy office space charge for the rent for where we were at, and it was kind of good timing too because like the lease was coming up, I think, and so it was kind of like, we've done it this long, let's just pull the trigger, stay home.
Mhm. I'm moving back down that way next month, so I have to start checking out the Atlanta meetup when it starts back again.
Cool. Yeah, well, I don't know when we'll actually
Yeah.
again, but
Oh wait, I was the last real life speaker, wasn't I?
yeah,
You did this.
Good. It's about time I get known for my awesomeness. Now, if only I could lose the 19 pounds I've gained from all the cooking I've done. Damn COVID-19 sticking to me.
It is dangerous when you're stuck at home.
Oh, I know. I made pizza dough the other day from scratch. And then I was like, well, shit, I guess I got to make pizza.
you just make just generic dough so you can make anything with it, not have to make pizza.
Bread or rolls.
I mean, this is like geared for pizza, but like I've done bread. I made like pizza, or not pizza, but like I did like a homemade pasta sauce last night. Like I've done cookies a lot.
Cookies are really dangerous.
They are.
Yeah. You can't share them with anybody, because I want to get other people.
Anyone,
sick.
anyways.
Yeah. All my cookies.
My cookies. Get away from me.
Do you have a trainer or something that you can get on the bike?
I mean, even though it's like super freaking hot out here, I think it's maybe about a mile from where I live, there's an abandoned air park that the city has taken over. So it's part of the Greenway networks now. So, and like that's where like all the old country music stars would fly into Nashville when they're like and perform at the Opry, was this air park. Like Patsy Cline, her airplane was supposed to land there and then it crashed. So like, she died on the way to this one. But I have a smart trainer, but I only use that for the winters and stuff, or like if it's raining. Cool. Most of the time I just try and get outside, especially now, like without the cars on the road. It's so nice.
Yeah. Do they have like VR plus a trainer yet? Like, is that a thing?
Yeah. I mean, there's a few, like the most popular one's Swift. And it's pretty good for what it is. Like it's a pretty immersive world. And in fact, like they have it set up where like me and a friend, like I did this a couple months ago, me and a friend who lives in North Carolina, we Zwifted at the same time. So they kept us, it was basically like we were riding together, just a virtual program. And I know that the pros who do, like they're doing the Tour de France, which should be going on right now, but they're doing it virtually in Zwift this month, I think.
Wow.
So I mean,
like the actual thing.
Yeah. I mean, they're still going to do the Tour de France, I think, later this year, like the actual thing.
Okay.
But they're like to give the pros something to do, and especially since like Europe's starting to reopen, at least gets like some money back into their pocket. But yeah, like they've mapped out all the routes and everything, and it's in Zwift for them to ride on. So
Swift,
I mean, it's
just like the programming language. Swift? Is that?
It starts with a Z instead of an S.
Oh.
Zwift.
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 Interesting.
It's both like super fun, but it's also draining because it's just, like one of the fun things about cycling is like having the wind in your face and dodging cars, and it's kind of hard to do all that in a virtual world where there's no cars.
Yeah.
Hey, Logan, I don't have access for sharing my video or my screen. So
Okay, yeah. Let me. I think when you left. Should be good now.
Silence my notifications so Ben can't text me inappropriate things.
I don't know how to make it like so that the panelists can like share stuff. I'm sure that's a setting. So co-host, make everybody a co-host. That fixes it.
Technology is hard.
Yeah. Well, I guess should we go ahead and get started? Although everybody's here.
It's a good amount of people here.
Yep.
Hard to filter in.
Yeah, I think they can filter in. We've got about 20. No, wait, I can't math. 27, something like that. Yeah.
Oh, great.
All right.
Wait, there's 27 people watching this?
Yeah, so there's like 16 on Zoom and then 11 on YouTube. So,
Oh.
yeah. You're going to be the superstar tonight, Trask. We're going to do intros a bit, and then we'll get started.
Just in case.
Get the talking juice ready there. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us here for July Merge PHP. I'm actually going to I think let Bobby start us off, and then pass it back to me, or I can do my stuff. I don't know. How about I'll do my stuff and then we'll go down the row here.
works for me.
All right. Let me find the right window. Got so many things open. Yeah, okay. All right. Cool. So I'm here representing Austin PHP. We're on YouTube also as Austin Tech Videos, a thing that I started a while back. So that's kind of where all our videos are ended up there. Definitely check that out. Got the last couple PHP Talks Live or Merge PHP. We couldn't decide on what we're going to call this thing that we're doing. The Atlanta, Boston, and Austin. So we came up with various names for it. One that I quite liked was the joint PHP Task Force, and I thought it was very apt with who our speaker is tonight. So really looking forward to the talk, Matthew. But yeah, that's pretty much about us. You know, we've got a Slack, austinphpchat.com. You want to check that out. But yeah, really happy to be doing this with everyone. So I hope we'll continue to do this forever. All right, Bobby, you ready?
All right, try to share my screen here. Can we see that? You see my slide? Oh, hang on.
There we go.
How about now? Okay.
Yes.
This thing over here. There we go. All right, I just got a few slides. This is like an abbreviated version of the slideshow I go through for the intro at a typical Boston PHP meetup. So welcome to Boston PHP or Merge PHP or the Joint Task Force or whatever you want to call it. Our home, Boston PHP, for those who aren't familiar with us, is on Meetup. That's where our We post our events. That's like the central location for all our stuff, basically. The link's right there. We're on Twitter. We have a group on Facebook that you can join. We have a group on LinkedIn that you can join. We've been around since 2002. So God, that's 18 years, isn't it? We've had 271 meetups technically, according to the meetup website. A bunch of those were like virtual self-study groups and stuff, so probably like 30 or 40, but we've had over 200 in-person meetups since 2002. We have 3,854 members as of earlier today. And we focus on education, idea sharing, and open source. We do that through in-person meetups and self-study groups. And since the last couple of months, now we do virtual meetups. And we also have an event every once in a while we do called Developer Dorm Room, which is basically like a hack night, except it's an all day, like Saturday, like 9 to 5-ish, come and go as you please, and work on ideas and hack with other people. Look forward to those. I don't know when we're going to be, whenever we can be in person again, who knows how long that'll be. And then here's just the contact info. If you want to talk about virtual self-study stuff, you can find us on the meetup site, talk to Gene Babin, and anything else you can contact me. And that's it for my intro. Who wants to go next?
I think that leaves me here. Share real quick. Okay. Let's...
You might have to stop sharing, Bobby, and then.
Okay.
It's working, Chris.
Cool. All right. Well, just thanks for, I see a few Atlanta people logged in, so I appreciate you all coming, and as well as everybody else who's attending from other groups around the country. Appreciate everything. Let's run through a few things. I'd like to thank our video sponsor, Variux, is a great Magento integration shop here in Atlanta. If you have any questions or needs for that, let me know. I can put you in touch. I appreciate David. I don't know if he's on, but it's been tremendous help with our group. Also, just want to mention ShootProof, my employer, a gold level sponsor in our meeting space when we meet in person.
Wait, I think that maybe it might be paused or something. Can you move your mouse? Or it's not. Maybe it's on a different screen. Yeah, we see like the slides, not the.
Doing the presenter.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Is that?
Oh, okay, hold on. Yeah, this is, okay, let me stop sharing for half a second.
Hashtag quarantine life.
Technology is hard.
Yeah.
I think I accidentally shared a specific window and not my entire desktop, and that's what it did.
Yep.
So does that look right? Like ShootProof screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, we're good now.
All right. Mentioned Variux, Magento integration shop, ShootProof. Thank them very much. Tons Technologies, really top-notch recruiting firm. The only one we really have a relationship with. Really great, and they work nationwide. If you're interested, let me know. Guild Quality, another local PHP shop. Thank them very much. We'd like to mention just events, whether local or otherwise. Laracon's coming up in August, an online event, Laracon US, August 26th. Connect Tech in Atlanta here. They've changed the dates to middle of October. They're more web and front end, but they've, a lot of people do a little bit of everything, and so there's a lot of good talks there. Also mention Longhorn, Logan and others project in October in Austin. And also Refactor.tech in Atlanta again, moved to late 2021. That's a polyglot conference focused with an emphasis on diversity and inclusion. So it's in their second year running. So I have to mention them and support our local events. Also, just a reminder, we have our message forum. It's a Google group at atlantaphp.org. Also, our video archive, which is wide open to everybody, it's public. So other user groups are welcome to see what we got. We have an archive going back to 2012. Also, we're on Meetup as well. Meetup, basically atlantaphp.org or Atlanta PHP Twitter, Meetup, all those things. We're easy to find. So I will close with that.
Cool. I just wanted to say a few things. If you're joining us in Zoom via the webinar and it's your first time joining, welcome. And so the webinar feature you may not be familiar with as a normal Zoom user. So as an attendee, it works a little bit differently. You don't have audio or video. Better for the talk, if that is the case. But there is a way that you can interact with the audience here, panelists, and the speaker, Matthew. So if you want to have a look at the bottom, there's a Q&A button there, and that's your best place to ask Matt questions. And for everyone joining us on YouTube, just feel free to ask questions in YouTube, and we'll bring it up here at the end of the talk, or as necessary. Yeah. Bobby, did you want to do intro stuff for Matthew? Or should I do it?
If you have something, you can do it.
Okay, sure. Well, Matthew is a really great guy, and this open source mental illness, I think, is a really important topic that we all need to take seriously, and I think Matthew does a good job of bringing levity to a difficult topic. And mental illness is something that, it's the kind of thing that would sneak up on you. You may not realize that, you're impacted or a coworker is impacted. I kind of equate it to a little personal story is I had a sleep disorder, right? And, you don't really realize you're not getting good sleep until it's a problem. So I think it's very similar sort of situation is you're so focused on, family and work and everything outside of yourself. It's important to take the time and kind of like evaluate, like, am I in a good space? Like, is Logan okay? So I think Matthew's going to give us some good tools and resources to help us if you're in need. So Matthew, if you are ready, I'm gonna swap it over to you and you can take it away.
Cool. Yeah, wait 1 second. One second. I had something funny I was gonna add.
No problem.
Apparently if I don't, oh wait, save. Yeah. Word.
You're like finishing the slides, like, as the talk is going. That's pretty awesome.
I mean, I am friends with Phil Sturgeon. It's just yeah, I'm ready whenever.
All right, yeah. Go ahead. You nobody's sharing their screen, so you can go and do yours. Yep.
So we can all see my screen.
Yep. Looks
Cool.
good.
I don't think it's like a real virtual meetup until someone asks if they can see your screen. So we've marked that off. So welcome. First off, thank you to Ben, Logan, Bobby, Chris, everyone for getting together. I know this is a joint PHP task force because I had a hand in helping you all get together, but it is really cool to see y'all adapting to such a shitty situation with something really cool and positive. One of the best things I like, the situation sucks and we're going to talk about it a little bit, but one of the best things I love about what's going on right now is how meetups are no longer restricted to areas. Like I sat into PHP South Wales last week, which is really cool because I don't have the money to just hop on a flight and go to South Wales. But because now that they're online, I can just hop into a Zoom chat with them or Portland PHP, which I did a couple months ago. And I get to see my friends, all who I don't get to see to share because of conferences. And I get to kind of hang out and at least share a little bit of an experience. So for all of y'all organizers, thank you so much. For everyone joining us, welcome. My girlfriend's in the audience. This is going to be very terrible. And David Stanley's here too, and that's going to be even worse. But this is a very timely talk because we're talking about mental health. Obviously, unfortunately, this talk does have a little bit of like participation, and it's a lot more fun when I can see your faces and see your hands go up and down. But obviously, with the situation going on right now, I can imagine if I was standing in a room talking to everyone and I said, who has a just an overarching impending sense of doom that won't go away, I imagine like 95% of the hands would shoot up, and you're not alone in that. And we're going to talk about that. So if you want to follow me real fast on Twitter, my username's at the bottom. I am on a Twitter break right now, but my email is also in the bottom as well. So if you have questions, you have comments, you want to reach out, you want to learn a little bit more, find a better resource, something like that, feel free to email me, and I will do my best to either find you a resource that you need or point you in the right direction. I can't promise to get you the best or be the best resource, but I can definitely try and point you that way. Okay. Excuse me, a little bit of the COVID there. So we need to do a little bit of warnings real fast. This is going to be one of those talks. I'm not a doctor. I don't have a medical degree. I don't have any kind of degree. Actually, I barely finished high school. So I didn't study medicine. I don't have a psychology degree. I'm not a psychiatrist, and I definitely did not stay in a Holiday Inn Express last night. Okay, we have a poll that just shot right into the middle of my screen. That's awesome.
Sorry, I was testing that feature out. So we have polls now. If you want to ask a question, Trask, let me know and I'll create it.
It was literally testing in production.
Yeah, that was like push to production. Yeah.
Don't let Chris Harchas know about that. He would be mad that he did not test it and then deploy it. It's work. I got it. So I'm not a doctor. I did not say to Holiday Inn Express. If you're old enough to get that joke, if you're young enough, it's on YouTube. If you want to feel old, back when Boston PHP started, I was still in high school and I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. So you're welcome. But even though I'm not a doctor, I do have experiences and I do have relatable content. Don't mistake anything I say as medical advice. And if any of this resonates with you more than just, damn, that feels really true, I highly recommend you doing a Google search in your area for a psychiatrist, psychologist, anything that is a professional doctor that can help you talk you through some of these situations. The other thing is that the content is going to be kind of heavy at sometimes. We are talking about mental health. We are talking about a real thing that millions of people deal with on a daily basis. Unfortunately, there's going to be talks of things like suicide, depression, anxiety, manic, and things like that. There is a little bit of a disclaimer that I throw up on the screen right before we dive into the really heavy stuff. So if that's a thing for you, I will make sure I say that so that way you can kind of take a step back. And then it usually takes about 10 to 15 minutes to get through that part, and then you can kind of rejoin us. And then also there might just be some swearsies along the way because this is a really heavy topic, and sometimes the only way to get the point across is to just say a swear word. I know if my mother was on this call, she'd probably be mad at me, but what the fuck ever. So ultimately, at the end of this talk, what I want you to walk away with is a sense of purpose that I want to inspire people to talk up if they have a mental issue. And it's not easy to do. And I promise you, I know how hard it is to do it because I've been there multiple times through my life. And if you're not one of the people who deals with a mental issue directly, I want you to donate your platform to their cause. Half of us are on Twitter. Half of us have a blog. Half of us have Instagram. Some of us sadly still have Facebook. You should delete your Facebook. But if you have those platforms and you see people who are talking about anxiety, depression, things like that, a quick retweet is more effective than what you can possibly know because it amplifies their message and lets more people who may be hiding in the shadows, afraid to speak up, see other people being strong, and that gives them the strength as well. And so throughout this talk, we're going to talk about a lot of heavy topics. And at the end of it, I hope that if you're not dealing with any of these issues, that if you see someone talking about it on Twitter, on a blog, on Instagram, you reblog them, you retweet them, You do whatever it is you do on Instagram. I don't know. My girlfriend knows. But you amplify people's message, because the more that you amplify someone's message, the more people see it. And the more people see it, the more they know it's okay to not be afraid and it's okay to speak up. So without any further ado, let's get this party started. So ultimately, the first thing that we really need to talk about is OSMI. I say let's do a poll and see how many people actually know what OSMI is, but I'm afraid it's going to pop up on the middle. There it is. There it is. Yeah, cool. So if you know what OSMI is, it's great. If you don't, it's actually not as shocking as I'd expected it to be, because we haven't had a conference. The last real conference that I know of was Sunshine PHP, because after that, Midwest went virtual and everything else started canceling after that. And OSMI is big on the conference scene. So if you're not familiar with OSMI, it's Open Sourcing Mental Illness. And it's a 501c3 collective of developers, all who have the main driving purpose of sharing their stories of what it's like to live life with mental illnesses. I'm one of those people. And we have a bunch of different people in the group. We have bloggers, we have developers, we have speakers, we have organizers, we have some incredibly powerful people who know how to do grammar. That's not me. And we have people who know how to get things done. But to understand the story of OSMI, we need to go back all the way to the start. However, one really funny thing I saw is if you Google OSMI images, apparently there is a death metal group from Sweden called Osmi Putnik or something like that. So don't Google OSMI images, or do, and have some fun. But as you can see, we have our one logo here and then a bunch of album covers and this guy in a cavern.
I'm ready to launch the poll.
Yeah, go for it.
The poll? Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Did it do it again?
Actually, I'm going to watch this one, so I'm going to put it on my screen. No, yes, no, yes. Oh, we're at 50-50.
No.
Nice. All right.
All right.
I'm actually enjoying this.
Cool.
Okay, so to understand OSMI, we need to understand this guy, Ed Finkler. So, okay, now it's going to stick you to my screen, apparently. That's not
sorry. Okay, I'll stop doing poll stuff.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. To understand OSMI, you need to understand this guy, Ed Finkler. Once upon a time, there's a pretty decent podcast called Dev Hell, run by Ed Finkler and Chris Hartjes. You probably know Chris because he's loud on Twitter and he talks about testing all the damn time. Ed loves to remain in the shadows. And there's a reason why, is because Ed, for the longest time, has dealt with a lot of mental illness. Finally, Ed went to Chris on one episode and was like, look, I need to talk about this. I just need to have a place to vent, to throw this out there. I don't know what's going to come of it. It's just, I have to let this go. As the story's been told, Chris was kind of skeptical of it. This was a tech podcast after all. Chris was kind of like, man, I don't know. Our listenership may not like it, but I will trust you because you're my friend, and I will go along with it. It's about a 45, 50-minute episode, and if I find the episode, I'll send it to all the organizers so they can link it out when they send my slides and all that good stuff. But basically, Ed got on the episode and just let it all out. Just talked all about the struggles he's had with anxiety, with depression, with suicide, things like that. And it became their most listened episode. They got so much feedback from it that Ed kind of felt it was his calling in life to kind of take that episode and turn it into something bigger. So he did OSMI. At first, he was kind of on his own. He didn't really know what to do. He kind of just threw some tweets into the void, and it was all on to Joe Ferguson. Most of us should probably know Joe. He maintains Laravel Homestead. He maintains Joined In. He basically doesn't know how to say no to anything. It's a trait of his. And because of Joe, OSMI went from nothing to a 501c3 labeled organization in all of about 2 weeks because he got the paperwork done in just such a precise way. All right, that's kind of awkward. But minus Ed's face on the images there, when Joe kind of stepped in, he kind of pushed OSMI to a direction to, handling things such as making pamphlets like you see here that you can find free on leanpub.com. Things like guidelines for employees. What is your rights within the Americans with Disabilities Act? Guidelines for mental wellness within the workplace. What are things that employers can do to help your employees thrive if they're dealing with anxiety, depression, or things like that? And also a handbook for employers. And like, how do you deal with these issues? How do you handle such sensitive and difficult topics? Like I said, all these can be found free online at leanpub.com or on our website, osmihelp.org. If you do move the slider to the right, we do get some money. So I'm not saying you have to, but it kind of helps a little something there. Okay, for real. Oh, that's gonna be awkward. Does anyone know how to get Ed's face off of my computer?
We don't see the Ed's face.
Okay.
It's in your mind.
No, it literally was there. It's right there.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
Well, now it's gone. And also the other thing that Joe kind of did was he pushed us to start speaking and getting tables at conferences. So as you can see here, this is one of the tables that we've done at a conference. When conferences are in person, you can usually find us at a conference. We have stickers. Sometimes we have shirts, things like that. But most importantly, we're there to kind of just hang out and spread the word of OSMI. And we also take silly pictures. That is a very gratuitous shot of myself. But as you can see, there's other people. Joe Ferguson is right by the banner. Margaret Staples, who is, honest to God, one of the coolest people I've ever met. Brian Redderer is sitting in the back corner behind Chris Tankersley. He's definitely the cuter of the two, but we don't need to tell Chris that. And then you have Chuck Reeves at the bottom there. All of these people, and including Michelangelo Van Dam back there, who I didn't realize he was there until just now, are all a part of the OSMI family in one way or another. Whether it's just wearing the hoodie, which sparks a conversation, being a speaker, or willing to just share your experiences. And so that's kind of the story of OSMI from where it is now, or where it started to where it is now. It's a little bit of a hiatus because we obviously can't be going to conferences and traveling, and it's kind of hard to have a sponsor table at a virtual conference. Now, this is the terrible part. And this is the part where if you're afraid, or not afraid, but like if these kind of issues kind of trigger you in some sort of way, this is where I kind of recommend taking a step back. As of the numbers I saw in 2019, 1 in 5 people in America are currently dealing with a mental health issue. 1 in 5, that's 20%. If we're in a room of 100 people, that's 20 people are dealing with some sort of mental health issue. And of those 20% of Americans, 56% are not getting the care they actually need. In Maine, 41.4% are not getting the help. And I single out Maine because in the United States of America, Maine is actually one of the states that has one of the best healthcare systems in our country. So if 41% of the people in one of the best states for healthcare are not getting help, you can only imagine what it's like down in states that are not as robust of a healthcare system such as Maine. And this source comes from mentalhealthamerica.net. I try and label all of my sources, and when I send my slides out, you can go fact check me. A survey by thriveworks.com, 11,000 tech workers were surveyed, and 57% said that they were self-reported stress and burnout. We joke about burnout a lot, but really it is a huge issue that while it's not truly a labeled mental health issue, it's an issue that can lead to larger mental health issues. Dare I say, let's start a survey. How many people have ever been burned out before? I know I can say I've been burned out before. In fact, I joke that I'm perpetually burned out. And it's not something I should really joke about, but it really is, at least pre-COVID-19, I truly was always trying to do something. I did not know how to say no to anything. It wasn't until I talked to Joe Ferguson, who I was like, how do I say no? And he's like, you just say no. And I'm like, it's not that easy. I don't know how to say no. And he's like, no, you just say no. And I'm like, bruh, it's not that easy. And because of that, I'm constantly always trying to find ways to please people, to make people want to keep working with me. So I take on too much, and it leads to burnout. So if there's a poll out there, I'm sure that most, if not all of the people on this call will at least at one point say they've been burned out. And if you don't know what burnout is, it's quite a unique phenomenon. It's such a lack of will to go on. It's when I find myself burned out and I'm laying in bed, I honestly think of like, how can I get out of doing whatever I'm supposed to do today? Whether it's go to see a friend or I need to run to the store. Can I put off doing my laundry because I just want that day where I don't do anything? And unfortunately, one day is not enough for me. And 2 days are not enough for me. I need like a week to not do anything. But if I have a computer around me within 5 feet of me, I'm probably going to end up coding, which means I'm probably just going to end up exacerbating my burnout even further. Unfortunately, the only way that I found that so far solves my burnout issue is I need to go to a cabin in the North Georgia mountains where there's no internet, and the will to code just kind of leaves my body because I can't npm install anything, and I can't compose or install anything, and I can't read the docs, and I'm forced to read a book. It's the key. Now at OSMI, we did do a survey. And the last time we did a survey, we asked the question, would you feel comfortable discussing mental health issues with your direct supervisor? And only 36% said yes, which is not at all surprising. It takes a lot to voice these types of issues. 68% no if you've ever discussed your mental health with your employer. Now, if you're dumb like I am, and I'm okay to say that I'm dumb, you're not dumb, I'm dumb. If you live your life on Twitter like I do, your employer is bound to figure out that you have these issues. And there's a story I can tell you later on where the CEO found out that I had these issues. And it really kind of ended up in a very positive way. But had I not done that, I would never have told anyone at the company I previously worked at I had these issues going on in my head. 44% of people surveyed through OSMI said they don't know what the mental health care options are available under employer-provided health care. In America, if you're watching this overseas, you should know that employers usually handle our health insurance. And because of that, there's a lot of ambiguousness around what care and treatment can I get as someone who handles or deals with mental health issues under my employer-sponsored healthcare plan. And 63% have said no to your employers ever formally discuss mental health as either part of some sort of wellness campaign or other kind of communication. I can firmly say that I'm in the yes camp for this because if you remember a few years ago, Anthony Bourdain took his life, sadly. And it was an issue that the CEO messaged me about, the same CEO I just talked about. And he asked if he should say anything to the company. I said, I think it's well within your right to. And he mentioned that these are the options available under our health plans. These are things that you can do. And so while I can say that I've had this experience and I've said yes, unfortunately, the majority of Americans and the majority of people surveyed say no to these kinds of things. And it's not something that's easy to ask for either, because you're exposing yourself to your HR, to your boss, to your team leads, to your senior management, that you may have anxiety, you may have depression, you may have something bigger than that, and they're not going to know how to handle that, and they may end up unintentionally ostracizing you. When dealing with things like physical or mental health, 66% of people surveyed through our open source mental illness survey said that they feel more comfortable talking about physical health, things like breaking legs or bruises or anything like that, like a twisted ankle on the basketball court, versus some sort of mental health issue with their coworkers. Now they'll like really hit home. And these are numbers that if you're curious about like how to bring this conversation to your management, this is the number that you can really kind of hit on, is that in 2018, when the WHO.Inc. did the survey, they found that $1 trillion was lost to productivity to mental health issues globally. $1 trillion, which is a lot of money. It's a number that none of us will ever see in our entire lifetimes, except for Ben, who trades options, and he's obviously going to the moon. Now, if you want to understand kind of like how does that money get lost, it's multiple different ways. One of them is a thing called presenteeism. And yes, it's a word. I may have just made it up, but it definitely is a word. But being a hobbit has its perks, and that's what I am. But if you're curious what presenteeism is, it's when you show up to work, whether you work from home, you work from office, you work from a coffee shop, wherever, you have your laptop open, you have your text editor open, your terminal's going, your Slack is going, but you're not really doing anything. You're kind of just sitting there. Your mind may be off into space. You may be thinking about anything but what you're supposed to be doing. Presenteeism is a huge issue that no one's really talking about right now because no one really kind of knows how to study it. But all it is it's sitting down or standing, if you have a standing desk, at work, and you're there. You're physically there. People can talk to you. People can touch you. People can see your presence in the office, but you're not actually completing work or contributing to any kind of goal that would end up making money. And so you're costing money. So that's what presenteeism is. And this is something currently is bigger than what people kind of think it is with everything going on. If you have this impending sense of doom that just won't go away, that's attributing to presenteeism. Depression alone costs us $225 billion a year. And people with depression are 40% more likely to develop cardiovascular and metabolic diseases than the general population. Things like heart disease, obesity, things like that. I joke on Twitter a lot, but it's really a thing, is that I love to eat my feelings. And I love to eat my feelings through things like chocolate chip cookies, pizza, hot chicken, if you've ever been in Nashville. Shit's delicious. Beer. And all of these are because they make me feel good. They really do. But ultimately, none of them are good for me, and they're all going to add on to the number on the scale that keeps going up and won't go back down, because even though as hard as I try and fight it, and because of that, I'm adding to a risk of having some sort of cardiovascular metabolic disease down the road. We lose $69 billion in suicide. And among people 10 to 34, which is mostly the age range that a lot of developers are, suicide is the second leading cause of death among those people. And suicide has increased since 2001, when I was in freshman in high school, to now, by 31%. And these stats don't include within the last couple months since March, where things have been a little bit more dire. But you might also be wondering, like, how is that $69 billion factored in? Well, the thing is that as a person who gets a paycheck, you contribute to the economy in two different ways. One, you contribute by you're producing code, which ultimately produces that production adds to the company's gross value, which goes to the country's gross domestic product, which they can output. So if you end up taking your life, you affect the economy in that way. And on the other hand, you also affect it because as a citizen of the economy, you have a certain responsibility to spend your paycheck, whether it's on rent, on food, on clothing, or things that you absolutely don't need, like a baby Yoda being held by Jesus picture behind me. And when someone ends up committing suicide, that stream of money is taken from the economy, which adds to this number. So that's how we get to $69 billion. And this number is going to continue to rise as suicide becomes more and more prevalent, as more and more people struggle and are afraid to reach out. So what is it like to kind of deal with all these issues? it's mostly downsides. There are some good sides, and we'll get to them. But the downsides are like you're constantly guarded. You're constantly afraid. You're living in fear. And if you're me, you lack a certain level of self-confidence. If you follow me on Twitter, you know, like I don't hide that I have no confidence in my abilities to do what I do. I somehow get hired at jobs. Sometimes I have no idea how I get hired at these jobs. It's a fact of life that I have not figured out. People tell me I do a good job, and I hear those words, and logically they make sense. Like they're fine English, and I understand English, but they don't resonate with me. People tell me I do a good job, that I'm a great developer, that I'm a great speaker, and I'm just like, that's cool, that's awesome, thanks. It never resonates with me because I just I lack the self-confidence to believe in myself. But mostly it's just, as of lately, it's an impending sense of doom that never goes away. And that's why I'm on a Twitter break right now, because I can't deal with the constant doom and gloom of society badgering me. If you know Aaron Schwartz, he said this quote, and this is more in reference to depression, but it really kind of hits on all different angles. He says, everything gets colored by the sadness. You feel as if it's streaks of pain are running through your head. You thrash your body, you search for some escape, but you find none. And we'll talk about him in a minute, because he plays a very heavy role later on down the road in this story. But if you've ever had depression, and seasonal depression is just as valid and just as much of an issue as non-seasonal depression. But you see everything kind of through a level of sadness that you don't normally do. Even if something's bright and vivid, flowers, you kind of look for the bad versus the good. If I'm on a walk with my dog and I see a beautiful flower and I'm in a depressive mood, I'm going to look for the one petal that may be bent slightly and focus on that versus the overall beauty of the flower as a whole, if that makes sense. To describe depression, really, it's hard not to talk about this guy. If you saw Avengers Endgame, you know who he is. If you haven't, well, it's been a year and like 5 months, so we can skip the spoilers, but this is Thor after he kind of screwed everything up. People kind of joked and laughed about this for a while. But this is like a wonderful, wonderful depiction of what depression really looks like. Because if you know in the movie, Professor Hulk and the rabbit go to Thor's place. And at first he's really jovial. And he's trying to project happiness and everything's fine. And it's not until Thor says that one word, Thanos, that he breaks down and he's like, oh God, we do not need to talk about him right now. And Thor's wall kind of just shatters all in front of him. And it's really what depression's like. And particular with me is that I throw a wall up and I try and deflect everything with humor. And anytime that I know I'm super depressed, I try to just make other people laugh because I know that if they're laughing, they'll think I'm fine, which is kind of what Thor did here. With anxiety, it's kind of a little bit different. And I saw this tweet, I think I saw it on Reddit yesterday, but it says, I just found out that people who suffer from anxiety tend to rewatch the same TV shows all over again because we already know what's going to happen next. Therefore, it creates a sense of safety and comfort. And that's the reason why we keep rewatching them. And this hit me like a ton of bricks because throughout this period of isolation and quarantine, I've kind of watched the same couple of movies, same couple of TV shows, Parks and Rec, Schitt's Creek, Endgame, Star Wars, because I know how they're going to go. I know where the jokes are. I know where the storylines go. I don't really need to pay attention is what I used to tell myself. But really, of all the things I can control, this is one of the few that I can because I know where the story is going to end up. I know what's going to happen. And then because of that, I don't need to be afraid of the unknown, which is really what anxiety is. It's being grossly afraid of the unknown. And ultimately, life is just like a roller coaster. Sometimes I'm super happy and I'm super fine. Other times I have no idea what the hell is going on. And I'm at the bottom of a very long depressive episode. And all I can do is hope that I finally found rock bottom and we're only on our way up. But if you ever want to know like what is life like, this is like probably the most accurate representation of a day-to-day life for someone dealing with all these issues. Another good one is like this. And if you ever seen this movie Free Solo, this guy right there, Alex Honnold, he's on El Capitan in Yosemite. As you can tell, he has no ropes on with him, and he is free soloing a sheer rock face, which is a great analogy to everything that we deal with, which is a lot of the times I surround myself with great people, great friends, people I love, people I trust, but I never fully want to trust them with everything that goes on with my life. I never fully want to let them in. So instead, the only thing that I trust is myself, similar to Alex here, where the only thing that he is trusting is his 2 hands and his 2 feet. And because of that, if he falls, it's all on him, which is kind of how I've made it with myself. If I fall, it's all on me. I'm only going down, and I'm not taking anyone with me because I'm so afraid to trust other people sometimes, especially during massive depressive swings. And with anxiety, it's kind of a little bit different. It kind of takes a lot of work to get me to trust people. If you don't know what this is Mount Everest. This is the highest peak in the world. Next to it is 2 of the other highest peaks. Now, to kind of understand this image, I kind of need to tell you what it's like to climb Everest. I've never done it before. I'm not that rich, nor am I that dumb. But when you get to Everest, it requires months of acclimatization. You show up to base camp, you spend a couple of weeks there, you figure out how to breathe at 17,000 feet. Then the first week you climb up to camp 1, you spend a couple of days, you climb back down to camp or the base camp. You do it again a couple of weeks more, except you go to camp 2, you come back down. You go up to camp 3, you come back down. All this time you're getting closer to the goal, but you're not exactly getting there until finally you make that push up to camp 4 and then finally up to Everest. A story that really relates to this is when I first moved to Nashville. I used to be in Atlanta, now I live in Nashville. I had a friend who was having a party. If you know me, you know that I really like my PBR and I like my whiskey and I like dirty dive bars where I can get a burger and it's gonna reek of cigarette smoke. I'm not really into the whole hipster craft cocktail fancy bars. But when I came here for the very first, or within my first few months, I had a friend who had a birthday and she invited me, which is great. You know, you should go out, you should meet people. She invited me to a part of town that I had no idea anything about, never been there. And it was at a bar where my quick little Google search showed me that this is the kind of place where my dirty hipster looks were not going to fit in with their fancy hipster looks. So when it came time for me to actually go to this party, a wave of anxiety hit me because I was like, okay, what if I show up and I'm the first person there and I have to answer questions about this girl's birthday party that I don't really know anything about? What if I get there and there's a bouncer and I have to wait because I'm just by myself? What if I don't know where to park? These are all questions that start flooding my mind. And so a couple hours before the party, I had to treat this whole thing like climbing up Mount Everest. I started at base camp, which was my couch, and I played a little bit of video games. And then finally I went to camp 1, which was my shower, and I took a shower. And I was like, okay, we're cool. So I went back to base camp, which was my couch, played a little bit more video games. Okay, I should probably like put on what I'm going to wear to the birthday party. So camp 2, put on, fancy shirt, jeans, all that good stuff. Went to sit back down, played some more video games. That's my base camp right now. Finally, I was like, all right, we're going to make the push. So I got in my car, camp 3, kind of hung out, chilled, drove to camp 4, which was the parking lot of where this bar was. And finally, I made that push to getting into the bar. Fortunately, all the bad situations that I thought in my head didn't happen because she was already there and she saw me and she was able to kind of be like, hey, come on over to where we're at. And I was like, sweet, awesome. I did not have to answer any questions. I did not have to care about anything. The bartender took my drink order and it was great. But as someone with anxiety, this is something that's constantly running through my head, especially if I'm going to a new place that I don't know anything about. What if the person asks me a question I don't know? What if I have to handle a situation I'm not prepared to. As trivial as it sounds, sometimes these things are super easy to take care of, but sometimes they require a lot more knowledge and work than I know what to do with. And my brain just kind of starts overloading myself with information. And I'm going to constantly think, what is the absolute worst situation that could this end up in versus it's probably going to end up okay. And I'm just making a big deal out of it, but I can't stop making a big deal out of it, if that makes sense. And then of course, there's the constant trope of trying to sleep at night. Hey, are you awake? No. Are you awake? Well, I kind of am now. Well, here's this really bad thing. Well, okay, what is it? I don't really know. And, now all of a sudden, while I'm awake, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. My brain's been like, hey, you should wake up. And I'm like, I don't want to. But I got this thing. And it's probably just thing from 4th grade that only I'm going to remember. But because I remember it, now I'm awake. So if you really want to know what it's like to have anxiety, wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and think about that thing you did in 4th grade that no one else remembers. And then do that 5 times in a row. And then you'll really kind of understand what life with anxiety is like. I'm constantly replaying interactions in my head. Interactions from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago. Things that honestly, if I brought up to a person, they probably would have no idea about at this point. But these are the things that my brain has chosen to remember, and they will remind me of down the road. There are some good sides, though. Shockingly, I'm hyper aware of everything. One time, Phil Sturgeon and I almost got stabbed in New York City because he's an idiot, and I was hyper aware of my surroundings. And because of that, I was able to make sure that I did not walk past that same hot dog vendor. There's a whole story there. It's great. At the same time, I'm incredibly motivated at times because I want to beat this and I want to show it that I'm stronger than anxiety thinks I am. And so sometimes the downside is that I can be incredibly motivated and end up, especially given the current situation, work till 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, closing issues, merging pull requests, deploying code, all that kind of stuff. But I am motivated to kick anxiety's ass. And ultimately, I kind of know who my true friends are, the ones who I can really trust with this kind of stuff. And the ones who I know, like if I tell them something, they're not just going to be like, oh, they're going to make fun of me behind my back or push me away because they don't want to deal with the shit that I'm dealing with. So while I haven't truly opened up to every single one of my friends, the ones who I have opened up with, I quickly find out if I can trust them or not with more information. And ultimately, it's like Everest, because at some point I get to touch the top of the mountain, which is the top of the world. If you're not counting Mauna Lea in Hawaii, which is technically the largest, but we don't count the ocean because nothing underwater counts. Ultimately, if I do go out, if I do beat anxiety, I get to touch the top of the world, which is a very exclusive club across the world. So while a lot of this sounds terrible, some of it can be really good. And ultimately, this is more of the good part too, is that there's organizations dealing with this. OSMI, Mental Health Prompt. We're actually now one big organization. OSMI, Mental Health Prompt, they kind of got together, I think early last year, and they're like, look, we're both doing the same thing. We're both trying to accomplish the same mission. Let's combine our resources, by our power, we're stronger together. And there's also the National Alliance on Mental Health, or NAMI is what they're like to be called. That's where I got a lot of my stats from tonight. And they do a lot of studies, and they're exposing a lot of information around this type of topic. Excuse me. One thing I did was that I collected a couple stories via Twitter. Some of them asked to be anonymous, some of them named names. It's cool. But this one from someone who would like to remain anonymous said, OSMI is not assist me in any direct way, but knowing that they exist, seeing its advocates speak, has helped me be a lot more open with my colleagues. So the fact that I'm willing to sit here with my PBR and I'm willing to share my experiences and be open with you has given other people enough strength to open up to their colleagues. And that's all we ask. That's all we really want to see is more people kind of open up just a little bit. You don't need to be loud and wild on stage like I am, and I've got to make up for it because I'm only 5 feet 2 inches. But just sharing your story with one person can be so much more powerful than what you really think it is. Christina Cottrell, who oddly enough lives in Nashville and volunteers with OSME, except I've never met her in my entire life. And Nashville's a very small town. She says, OSME existing reminds me that I'm not alone, and it's literally been a lifesaver for me. Jenna Quindika, who's one of my really great friends, and as a fellow OSME speaker, she says, OSME gets people talking about mental health in a brutally honest way. I'm grateful that we're having these conversations. If you ever catch her talking about mental health, I honestly recommend dropping whatever it is you're doing, giving her your full undivided attention. She's a wonderful speaker, and her talks on this topic just hit home in such a brutally awesome way. And the last one I have is Larry Garfield. We all know him. He wears a black shirt, or the black vest, blue shirt, does some stuff with Pantheon. He says, I'm pretty sure I've been slowly slipping into depression over the past year. This was about a year and a half ago when I got this quote from him. He says, having OSME around in the discussions around mental health make me feel far less guilty about calling up my therapist again to make a new appointment. And that last part really struck with me, that we help him make him feel less guilty about calling his therapist, whose sole job is it to listen and help people. Which shows you that harks back to the numbers that I showed you, where only 41% of people in Maine are getting the treatment that they need because people are scared, people are afraid, people feel guilty about dropping their problems onto someone trained and paid to listen to them. But ultimately, the thing is that I can share those last 4 stories because they're still here. These people and countless others are not here. I mentioned Aaron Swartz earlier in a quote. He's probably one of the most prominent developers to take his own life. If you don't know him, he helped with the RSS spec. He helped with PyPy. He converted Reddit from Lisp to Python. And he tried to kind of open source JSTOR, which legally was a whole thing. But because of his pre-existing depressive episodes, he ended up taking his own life. The same thing with Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade as well. You know, we're developers. You might not know who Kate Spade is. She makes purses. Her father, she talked to her father 2 days before she took her life. And I saw this in the news that her father said, I had no idea nothing was wrong, nothing was going on with her. She sounded happy on the phone, which kind of goes back to what I just pointed out with Fat Thor and myself, which is a lot of times we love to project onto other people. And I try and project happiness and humor. I do my best to make people laugh. I do my best to add levity to a situation, to lighten the mood. Because I don't want people asking me questions about how are you really feeling, because that's a question where honestly, I don't think we have enough time in the 15 minutes we have right now to really tell you how I'm really feeling. So instead I try and just deflect and push it into a new situation. Same thing with Robin Williams. Everyone points to Robin Williams as making everyone else laugh, and no one really truly knowing that on the inside, he was hurting and screaming, but he had no way to really get the help that he needed. And last but not least was a younger one, Tim Bergling, who you might know as the DJ Viche, who at 24 years old had more money than he knew what to do with, but money truly does not buy happiness. And because of that, he never knew how to get the help that he needed. And I share my stories because these 5 and countless others are not here to share their stories. And so if I can share my stories and affect at least one person in this audience, that's good enough for me to keep on going. So what can you do if you have these kinds of things going on? Just as a general person, look in your area, look for mental health first aid. You generally have to pay for this, but it's a worthy cause to pay for. It's going to teach you how to look for things like depression, anxiety, manic disorders, things like that. Obviously, take care of yourself, but that goes a little bit deeper, and it kind of knocks into the second point, which is develop hobbies outside of the computer. and more so find ways to like not be attached to things like social media, where it's just a constant stream of keeping up with the Joneses, doom and gloom, things like that. Reading, taking walks, getting out into nature, a bike. You can see my bike behind me. I can't recommend getting a bike enough, even if it's just, my bike is a fancy ass road bike, and I do hundreds of thousands, I do sometimes thousands of miles a year. Even if it's just a 5-mile ride through your neighborhood, is so much more better than sitting at your computer day in and day out. But you also have to eat well, working out, drinking water. One of these is absolutely fantastic to have with you at all times. I have 3 of those in my refrigerator right now, and I cycle through them. Things like soda taste good, but they wreck your insides. Water is going to keep you going. As a friend, you can listen and genuinely listen. If you say, hey, how are you doing? Don't treat it as just like a passing conversation. But if someone says like, I'm really not doing that great, be prepared to invest some time into understanding what's going on. And don't just offer solutions, but offer just a shoulder for them to put their head on, an ear for them to listen. And check on your friends. And honestly, this cannot be more stressed than right now. We can't see each other physically, obviously. So check in on your friends, and not just say, hey, how's it going? But like generally try and say like, hey, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? Some people are going to be timid about it, and that's fine. Let them be timid about it. Don't push and prod. But if you see them kind of looking for a way to say, hey, holy shit, things suck right now, be there, be present, and hop on Zoom, hop on Google Hangouts, whatever, and just share a drink with them. Have a good conversation with them. Let them know that you're there. It's a lot easier said than done. I know it takes a lot of effort. Sometimes it's not as easy to look as gorgeous as I do every single day. But if you can hop on Zoom, hop on Google Hangouts, and just kind of be with your friends, it really goes a lot further than what you possibly could think it could do. As an employer, if you are an employer or team lead, senior management, whatever you are, highlight your mental health policies. Just drop it in a conversation. Don't make it a big deal. Don't bring a lot of pomp and circumstance to it, because people are going to start trying to figure out and trying to start outing people who may or may not be affected with mental health issues. But just kind of drop it in a conversation. Hey, especially with times going on right now, I want you all to know these are what our health insurance covers by way of mental health policies. And encourage employees to take time for themselves. I'm terrible in this regard. I was actually kind of forced to take some time off the other week because my manager looked at the time I've taken off so far this year, and it was like 3 days up until 2 weeks ago. He's like, that's not good. You're taking a week off. And it just so happened that my girlfriend had taken a week off as well, and so it just timed out. But if you're in any kind of position where you can tell your employees to take time off and kind of be an agent of change in that regard, do it. Tell them it's okay. Times suck right now. People are so afraid of losing their job, losing their status as a senior engineer, a team lead, or whatever. And tell them it's fine to be taking time off, and you're not going to lose any kind of status whatsoever. Encourage people to not only take time off, but delete Slack off of their phone, delete their company email off of their phone. All that stuff will be there when we come back. But we need a way to disconnect and figure out, kind of like bring ourselves back to who we really are. So if you're in that position, really kind of push your people to start taking time off. And if you are not in a leadership role, but you are in an IC or something like that, an individual contributor, take a week off, take a long weekend, take Thursday and Friday off. You may do the same thing that you do on the weekend, watch a shit ton of Netflix, bake some bread. I mean, who doesn't do it at this point? The COVID-19, am I right? But at the same time, it's 2 extra days you get to do it. It's 2 extra days where you can not have to be checking Slack. And instead it's 2 days where you can kind of refocus your life in other different positive ways. And at the end of it, you can also create a safe environment for sharing. If you know you have people on your team dealing with anxiety, depression, even if it's not a clinically diagnosed thing, everyone's kind of dealing with it right now. Create a space where people can talk about it without any kind of reprisal or fear of any kind of anything kind of coming back on them. Whether it's just a Slack channel or just in their DM, something like that. Just give the people who work under you the ability to know that it's okay to share their true feelings. And it's okay to say, hey, this sucks and we're going to get through it together, but this sucks right now. Here's a way that you can kind of just vent your problems and we'll do what we can. So ultimately, at the end of this day, you know, the too long didn't read or too long didn't watch of this talk is, you know, like, don't feel sorry for me. I'm doing fine. But I want people to leave this talk feeling stronger, more empowered, and more empathetic. And ultimately be stronger than the fear. One of my favorite Twitter accounts, Thoughts of Dog. If you don't follow them, they're great. It says, I know you have a lot going on right now, so I just want to say, I think you're doing great. And I think that's every single person watching this talk. Like, positive praise is so rare in our society. It's so easy to like fuck shit up and get yelled at. But like when you do the right thing, it's so hard to get good praise for that. So honestly, like I think everyone who's watching this talk, I think you've done an awesome job just sitting here listening to me talk. I think you're doing great. So thank you very much. Thank you for coming out. If you want to find more resources, osmihelp.org has tons of them. It has a blog, it has pictures, it has the handbooks. Like I said, you feel free to message me. My email is mjftrask@gmail.com. I don't have one of those cool hey.coms because I don't want to pay him money. You can message me on Twitter, but it might languish in like a weird black hole of nothingness for a couple months until I get back on there. But feel free to reach out to me. And that's all I have. Yeah.
Good job, Matthew.
Or actually, I'll keep that on there.
Yeah. If there was I noticed that there's on the resources, osmihelp.org/resources, there's some good resources there. I kind of skimming through it, but maybe you can tell us, I know there's the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. That's pretty easy to find, but is there one dedicated for anxiety, like a separate one?
That's a good question. I don't know, actually. Let me pop that into Slack because we have a super cool OSMI Slack channel, and I will get you an answer.
Awesome. We have Chris on YouTube saying that he wants to rewatch Parks and Rec. Some other people saying thank you for the presentation. Yep, some good feedback on the YouTubes.
Wait, someone wants to watch what?
Parks and Rec. Rewatch Parks and Rec again.
Cheers, buddy. It's a good show. Sure as hell beats The Office.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a good show too.
Is it?
Chris, I think, is a fan. Maybe.
I know. I'm trying to bait him into the comments.
Don't forget, if you're on the Zoom, you can go to the Q&A section and ask a question.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt, I'll throw a question your way.
Oh, God.
Other than escaping to the woods like a hermit, what other tactics do you use to manage burnout? And maybe does that lead into your problems with saying no?
So you kind of cut out there, but the gist of it was, other than hiding in the woods, what do I do to like deal with burnout, right?
Yeah, and then the second follow-up, I guess, is that related to your problems with saying no? And has that helped the burnout, saying no more?
So I mean, like, okay, so running into the woods is actually a very new thing for me. And I credit my girlfriend Karen for this one because it was her idea. She found the cabin. And at first I was kind of like, that sounds silly. Like, who wants to go spend 3 days in a cabin with no internet? It turns out it's amazing. What I usually do for burnout is I try and just leave work a little bit earlier than I normally would. I usually am on anywhere from like 4 to 5 p.m. Central Time is like my cutoff. As long as I'll usually cut out around like 3 o'clock or so, and then I immediately try to just walk away from the computer. And I throw on an audiobook or something like that and take my dog, who's a terrible office manager. She never orders me coffee, but like I'll take her for a walk or something like that, and try and just I try and distract myself with anything that's not tech related. So like I end up cooking a lot or watching TV, but like as long as I'm not like having something computer related in my hands, generally works. Saying no to things, trying to stay away from the computer does in a way kind of help me say no, but also like if I've already committed myself to saying yes, it adds to it. The best way for me to like deal with burnout is hiding from a computer. Honestly, as weird as it sounds, like leaving, like I have a 2-bedroom apartment where I live. My second bedroom is the office. So I try and leave my computer in this room, and I'll close the door even. So that way, like I walk right past the room, and it's an added effort for me to go into this room to do anything. That's kind of like how I try and fight burnout. But really, like when I see burnout starting to creep, that's when I start trying to readjust things. Like I don't wait until I'm already burned out. I can already tell. I can feel burnout like is when like I'm agitated, when I'm annoyed by friends doing just normal things is a great sign for me to be like, oh shit, I'm burned out. Even like when like the project managers who I work with on a daily basis, they're both wonderful, great people. But when their Slack messages start causing me to have a visceral reaction to their notifications popping up, that's when I'm like, it's time for a walk. It's time to step away from the computer. And even a 30-minute walk will, at least for me, does enough to like reset things far enough back to where like I can at least deal with their Slack notifications for the duration of the day and get me to the end of the day where I can take a longer walk, I can get on my bike, I can do whatever I want to, and kind of start resetting myself from there, if that makes sense.
I have a question.
Okay.
What can you do if you have like say you have a manager who has like who's like freaking out, worried all the time about performance, and like is not amenable to something like letting you leave a couple hours early? Is there like a resource you can point him to or something that seems to work to convince people that it's important?
HR.
That makes sense. Yeah.
HR is there to protect the company and not you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a hard one. I've gotten incredibly lucky throughout my career of having people who in management positions values time with family. Fortunately, as I look back on my career, every single one of my managers has had kids. Now that I think about it, and I think I don't want to tell people to run out and have kids. That's a huge life decision to make. But like because they had kids, like they were so much more amenable to like things because kids cause, and okay, I don't want that to sound callous or anything, but like kids cause issues to pop up that you may not be expecting to pop up. Like kid's gonna have a fever that you're not ready for. Kid's gonna throw up. He's gonna eat a Lego. I did that. It's standard kid operating procedure there. Kid has soccer practice, football practice, baseball practice, t-ball, whatever. And all the managers I've ever had are always like they're usually the first ones to dip out when it comes to that kind of stuff. If you have a manager who is like you've got to be here from 9 to 5 every single day, you know, depending on like your seniority in the company and like how comfortable you feel with like being a rebel, I would like, if you're in a one-on-one with them, as you should be doing with your manager, I'd just be like, I'm just really curious, like, why are you so stringent on 9 to 5 every single day? Like, just have that conversation, because he obviously had, or I don't mean to say he, like, it could be a she, it could be a they, it could be whatever, but they have some sort of preconceived notion that, you know, work begins at 9, work ends at 5, that's it. And they may just not be exposed to different ideas. They may not understand what life is like outside of that. They may not have kids, you know, they may be a workaholic. They may be compensating because, like, for instance, I'm terrified of being fired. And so I'm constantly thinking I'm going to get fired. Anytime my manager's like, hey, let's talk, I'm like, sweet, I'm getting fired today. Because I got fired once early on in my career, and it just like really fucked with me. And so this manager may just, you know, they may have had an experience with their career where their manager was like, you've got to be here at 9, you've got to leave at 5, and that's it. And like we drive as hard as we can until 5 o'clock, and they're just not on the train to changing things up. So if I were you, I would, you know, I'm fine being a rebel, I'm fine challenging the status quo. I would just sit there and be like, hey, you know, I'm just curious, like, why? And then I turn into a petulant 5-year-old, and I'm like, why? And after 5 whys, you end up getting to the crux of the situation. That's like the rule. That's kind of like how I would start things. Just be like, you know, hey, look, I've noticed that like you're inflexible with work. Like you want to start now and you want to end now. Like why is that? And just let it be honest, you know, like kind of like before you react, take 3 seconds and just take 3 deep breaths and be like, okay, now why? Or your point makes sense, but society is clearly moving this way. You know, like, if that makes sense. That's kind of how I would approach that situation. It's not really like a mental health issue, but like it is an issue to handle. And I would just kind of approach and be like, look, you know, like, I'm really curious. Why do you want to do this? Okay, now that makes, and you know, like if they have a perfectly valid point, acknowledge it. You know, don't go in and like have, you know, don't go in like ready for a fight, but be ready to like acknowledge their good points. And hopefully they will see that in good faith and acknowledge your good points, and y'all will come to some sort of mutually agreed upon solution.
I mean, confronting your manager may make your anxiety worse. But I mean, I guess, you know, if you're in that situation, you don't really have a whole lot of choices or options.
I think it can help to frame how you approach that. When you just use the word confront, which immediately has kind of a connotation. And you just think of it as a conversation, or, you know, you're trying to understand them and try to get your point across in that situation. So you've got to kind of frame it in a sense that it's not in your own mind adversarial. Somebody I just want to mention too, somebody anonymously posted in the Q&A, recruiters can be a helpful resource to find a company with an appropriate culture. My wife happens to be a tech recruiter, and that's always a kind of a topic is, what is the company like? What is their attitude towards flex time and you know, family emergency situations and things like that. So you can, you know, if you're already at a company or a situation that is not compatible, that's different. But as you're looking for another job or something like that, or looking for, you know, to change jobs, that might be a consideration, is to express your interest and concern in that kind of a culture. Since I was still already talking to a couple quick points, since Logan gave me a gap there. I looked up the Dev Hell episode where Ed Finkler talked about his mental health issues and things. That was episode 15. Whack Job Central was the subtitle of that one. But if you're interested in that, devhell.info is their website, and that's the kind of the episode where the whole osmony thing kind of got launched, I think.
Yeah.
And another brief point too, Matt had on one of his slides mental health first aid. That's terminology, but I'm familiar with that. I haven't gone through their program or anything at all, but I remember that from one of Ed's talks. It's mentalhealthfirstaid.org is actually some training and certification you can get, almost like taking a CPR course, where you can learn to help recognize symptoms of anxiety, depression, burnout, things like that, whether it's within yourself or coworkers, things like that. So if you're interested in learning more about it, that site, mentalhealthfirstaid.org, is another resource that's kind of focused on that kind of thing. It doesn't mean, it's not like getting a psych degree, but at least it gives you some more training and tools to recognize in yourself or others, various symptoms and causes and solutions and things like that. So it's another useful resource.
Marion on YouTube asks or mentions have a list of how the manager / company would benefit from what you are proposing. So like, I guess try to think of it like how it's in their best interest. Maybe like, productivity in the long run versus the short, like framing it in like, your well-being is tied to the company's, the thing that you're working on, something like that, right? But having that list, before you go to and talk to the manager, I think we've got some good resources on OSMI help and some of the resources that you mentioned, Chris, getting that stuff together before you have that conversation. Be prepared, like you're a Boy Scout. And Marion also says, and suggests a trial period.
Yeah, that's a good way to. Or just leave. That's what I do.
Just peace out and be like.
I mean, like, my job gives me a lot of autonomy, though. Like, they tell me, like, go ride your bike. And if they know that, like, I'm getting agitated, or, like, they can tell, like, my Slack messages are getting, like, more and more snippy. Like, they'll straight up tell me, like, go ride your bike. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. I should go ride my bike. So, I mean, the moral of the story is, like, if you turn into an asshole, it might help you. I don't recommend that unless, like, you're confident that your job security will be there afterwards. But like, showing up with like a pros and cons list is a great idea. Like, offering me more autonomy means that, like, I will get my work done in a quicker fashion because I don't have to report at 9:00 every single day. Letting me leave a little bit earlier means that I'm going to show up the next day a little bit more rested and a little bit more alert. Letting me have the autonomy to go take care of what I need to means that I'm going to have less stress because I'm not going to be constantly thinking of, like, oh, when I'm done with work, I have to go to the pharmacy, the dry cleaners, the grocery store, and whatever else I have to do. I can just, like, I don't have these things piling up on my shoulders, if that makes sense. So that's another great tactic, is to show up with, like, these are the net positives and these are the net negatives of, like, if we do something new versus if we continue on with the same old.
I guess I have a follow-up question is, like, can you comment on, whether the lockdown, stuff since March, it has been easier or harder on people that may be struggling with depression or anxiety? I definitely could see, like, there's some added stresses, but maybe it's a little bit easier to self-regulate.
Yes. No, I mean, I can't speak for everybody in that regard. I'm naturally an introvert. Conferences, obviously, like when I go to a conference, like I like have bursts of extroverted actions, but then like you find me hiding in my room for like 3 hours napping because I'm like recharging. However, like so part of like so I was remote before COVID-19 took place. So transitioning to remote was nothing. Nothing happened to me for there. But the thing that did happen was that I lost my social outlet for my life. The big thing for me is like I love working from coffee shops and I love going out to eat. Um, and I lost pretty much both of those at the same time. Obviously, I can still go out to eat. I'm still not sure about coffee shops. So, but those are like my social outlets. Like I would go meet friends at coffee shops and work, or I'd meet friends at breweries and we'd kind of co-work, or meet friends for a drink after work, or meet friends for dinner, meet my girlfriend for dinner, do whatever. So like on the one hand, I'm a little bit more lonely because I don't have that social outlet. Um, but like my normal level of burnout is not there, surprisingly, only because um, the 9 to 5 has kind of been lifted because everyone went remote, so we're all kind of working at our best time. So like sometimes I'll take like a 2 or 3 hour break in the middle of the day, go ride my bike, come back and finish up work. Sometimes I start really early, end really early. Sometimes I start late, end late. My boss doesn't care just as long as my work gets done. So that's been a really net positive for me. However, and that's why I'm on a Twitter break, is because just like reading the news and reading, like watching the financial markets and trying to keep up with everything is just like a net negative across the board. Um, and you know, like I mean, I'm fortunate. I still have my job. I did not lose my job yet. Knock on wood. Like I work at an agency, so the first thing that gets cuts there is pretty much people. So, you know, like I still have like even though like my job is secure and like I know my job is secure based on like where I am in the company, but yeah, there's still like that overarching fear of like shit, things might change on a moment's notice. But you know, I mean, like it's it's a different kind of feeling because a lot of it's so out of my control that even trying to take in things like meditate, like I've read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I try and be mindful. I try and be stoic. I try and be like just within my own self, and it's still like so much is out of my control that can affect me that like I can't fully pull myself out of a situation. Instead, I just kind of like hope for the best, if that makes sense. It's a different kind of feeling, if that makes sense. You know, ultimately, like to fix it, I wouldn't recommend drinking a lot, but like taking a lot of a lot of walks is a great idea. And what I try and do is at least I take a lot of walks because of my dog, but some of them I'll bring my phone with me, so I have like Slack just in case work pops off. But sometimes like I'll leave my phone at in my apartment and I just walk. No headphones, no nothing. I just listen to nature. I listen to the sounds that are going on, and you know, for that 30 minutes or whatever it is, I just remind myself like nothing can affect me, and I just try and like use that time to kind of reset myself, rebalance myself, and usually that's enough to get me to the next point of the day.
Cool. Any other questions for Matthew? Are we good? Well, wait. Oh, maybe you have a question. Taking Chris says taking some evening constitutional helps. So me time. I you know, I go back to that Rick and Morty, like how awesome would it be like if you had like a toilet in the woods, on the edge of a cliff, you could just be transported to have some peace and quiet time. I mean, I imagine meditation would help, and there's some other things. Find what works for you, I think, is probably the moral of this story.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've talked about a bike a lot during this talk. Like, whatever it is, like,
Chris says constitutional being a walk. Sorry, I thought you meant something else there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, like the big thing for me is like when I don't listen to music when I ride because I want to make sure I hear for cars that are going to hit me. When I hear my shoes click into my pedals, like for whatever reason, that's just like that is a thing for me that just washes stress off of me. It's just like those two clicks into my pedals, I'm gone for 3 to 4 hours. I can't really look at my phone because I'll hit somebody. I can't really respond in any way because I don't have a keyboard and I don't have a phone set up with SSH access. Like that's my thing. Some people love baking, some people love planting, some people love gardening, some people love whatever, but find whatever it is that centers you. And ultimately, like, it may take a little bit of time for you to find that groove, but you'll find that groove and ultimately it'll pay off.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think another successful presentation. Thank you, Matthew.
Yep.
Ben or Chris, have any final thoughts for Matthew? Bobby, sorry.
Just as everyone else, thank you very much, Matt, and thanks for all the attendees. Appreciate y'all taking the time to be with us and listen in, and hopefully you've learned something and can come away with helpful tips and info.
Great.
Same here. Thanks, everybody.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Matthew. Really appreciate the talk. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next month.
Cue music.
Cue the rollout. See you guys.
You turn off the recording.
Yeah.